I was wrong. Stay with me until the end and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story travels. My name is Marlene. At 71, I had more money in the bank than I'd ever imagined. But wealth means nothing when life delivers the unthinkable. It started on a quiet Tuesday morning in March. I was in the same kitchen where I'd cooked my son Michael's breakfast every day until he moved out at 25. The same kitchen where we'd shared countless talks about his medical career and the future he was building. The phone rang, and before I even answered, a cold weight settled in my chest. "Mrs. Patterson," a calm voice said. "This is Officer Williams from the state police. I'm calling about your son, Michael Patterson." The world went silent. Words like collision and unresponsive blurred together. And then the sentence no parent should ever hear. "I'm sorry for your loss." Michael, my only child, my brilliant doctor who called every Sunday and still sent flowers each Mother's Day, was gone in an instant. Someone had run a red light. He was 43. I set the phone down and stared at my hands. They suddenly looked older, more fragile. The house felt hollow, as if the air itself had disappeared. People always said I was fortunate. A beautiful home, careful investments, millions saved after my husband Gerald passed 8 years earlier. But what good is fortune when the one person you want to share it with is gone? The days before the funeral passed in a haze. Michael's colleagues planned everything, speaking of his endless dedication to patients and late-night hours at the hospital. Their kind words only deepened my quiet guilt. Had he been lonely? Had I visited enough? Should I have pushed him to rest, to find someone to love? The service, the funeral took place at St. Mary's, the church where Michael had been baptized. Every pew was filled. Friends, neighbors, patients, fellow doctors. I wore the same black dress I'd worn to Gerald's funeral, hoping never to need it again. Father Martinez spoke about Michael's gift for healing and the faith he carried into his work. But my mind kept circling back to the silence that would greet me at home. At Greenwood Cemetery, the April air carried a hint of spring Michael would never see. I followed the casket, supported by my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. As the final prayers ended and the earth closed over my son, something inside me broke beyond repair. Parents aren't meant to bury their children. The unexpected visitors. When most mourners had left, I noticed 3 small figures beneath a large oak tree. 3 identical girls, maybe 10 or 11, dressed in solemn black. They held hands and watched the fresh mound of earth with a gravity far beyond their years. Each carried a single white daisy. They approached quietly and laid their flowers one by one. Triplets, same dark hair, same serious brown eyes. As they stood together in silence, one of them spoke in a voice so soft I almost missed it. The next words I heard that day cut through me like a blade. "Bye, Daddy. Stay with me until the end, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, so I know how far this story reaches." An unsettling goodbye. I must have gasped because all 3 girls turned at once. Surprise flickered across their faces, then something close to fear. Without a word, they clasped hands and ran toward the parking lot, vanishing behind the cars. Had I imagined it? Could one of them really have called Michael Daddy? That couldn't be. My son never married. He never mentioned children. He would have told me, wouldn't he? Mrs. Chen touched my arm gently. "Marlene, dear, it's time to go home. You've had such a long day." I nodded, but my eyes stayed fixed on the spot where the girls had disappeared. "Did you see those children?" I asked. "What children, honey?" she replied, scanning the empty cemetery. "The 3 little girls. They were just here." "I don't see anyone," she said softly. Maybe grief was playing tricks on me. Yet the sound of that small voice, "Bye, Daddy," echoed all the way home. A restless night. That evening the house was silent except for the ticking of the clock and the faint scent of sympathy flowers. I replayed the day. The service, the kind words, the prayers. But my mind always returned to the 3 identical faces and the way they'd placed their flowers with such care. If Michael had children, wouldn't I know? All those late nights at the hospital, those conferences, the distracted tone in some of our calls. Had he been hiding something? I told myself grief can twist reality, make you imagine things. Perhaps they were visiting another grave. Still, when I turned off the lights, I saw those faces behind my eyelids and heard the quiet farewell, drawn back to the cemetery. By morning, I'd decided to return. Maybe I only needed closure. Maybe I'd prove to myself it was all in my mind. Every day after breakfast, I went back, sometimes with fresh flowers, always with a quiet hope. For a week, nothing. Just caretakers and the occasional visitor. I began to believe Mrs. Chen was right. Then, the following Wednesday around 10, I knelt at Michael's grave, arranging bright yellow tulips, his favorite. A flicker of movement caught my eye near the oak tree. 3 small figures in navy skirts and white shirts. Triplets, no doubt now. Identical dark hair pulled back into neat ponytails. They approached with the same solemn grace, each holding a single red carnation. The second encounter, they placed their flowers on the earth and stood silently, as if in prayer. Then the middle girl whispered, "We miss you, Daddy." Aunt Margaret says you're in heaven now. My heart stopped. This wasn't grief's illusion. I must have shifted, because all 3 looked up at once. Their eyes widened. The girl in the center stepped forward, serious, composed, almost protective of the others. Are you Daddy's mommy?" she asked, her voice trembling. I couldn't speak. I only nodded, my throat tight with shock. Stay with me until the end, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, so I know how far this story travels. Meeting the triplets. The 3 girls exchanged quick glances, some silent understanding passing between them. "I'm Faith," the leader said, her voice careful but polite. "These are my sisters, Hope and Joy. We were Daddy's daughters." Their names hit me like a revelation. I studied each face, searching for Michael's features. And there it was, the same shape of the eyes, the familiar tilt of the head when thinking. Michael's expressions, alive in them. "How old are you?" I managed. 10, Faith answered for all 3. "We'll be 11 in September, 10 years old." Michael would have been 33 when they were born. I tried to remember that time, any sign, any hint, but nothing stood out. "Where do you live?" I asked softly. "With Aunt Margaret," Faith said after another worried glance at her sisters. "She takes care of us now." "And Aunt Margaret?" "She's at work," Faith replied. "She cleans offices downtown. We're supposed to be at school, but we wanted to visit Daddy," Joy finished in a voice as light as music. The hidden life. I knelt to meet their eyes. "Did Aunt Margaret know you came?" Faith shook her head. "She said we shouldn't. She said it's too sad. But we had to say goodbye. We never got to before." Hope's voice faltered. "Before he went to heaven," Joy whispered. My heart clenched. Michael had canceled our usual Sunday dinner the very weekend of the accident. "Did you see your dad often?" I asked. "Every other weekend," Faith said. "Sometimes after school he took us to the park. He taught us to ride bikes and make pancakes. He read us stories about princesses and dragons," Hope added. "And he always brought little gifts," Joy said with a small smile. "Coloring books, hair ribbons, even a big puzzle once." Tears burned my eyes. My son, my only child, had built a life I never knew, loving these girls deeply while keeping them hidden. "Why didn't he ever bring you to meet me?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Faith hesitated. He said, "You were still very sad about Grandpa Gerald, and he didn't want to make you sadder." That made no sense. Gerald had been gone 8 years, and Michael knew I hadn't shut myself away. "Did he say anything else about me?" Hope's face softened. "He said you were the best mommy in the world, and that when the time was right, we'd meet you, and you would love us too." The tears came then, unstoppable. "I would have loved you," I whispered. "I would have loved you so much." Faith reached out, her small hand patting mine with surprising steadiness. "It's okay," she said. "Daddy told us sometimes grown-ups make hard choices to protect the people they love." A sudden interruption. Before I could ask more, a woman's voice rang across the cemetery. "Faith, Hope, Joy, what are you doing here?" A woman in her 50s hurried toward us, worry and anger written on her face. Thin, with graying hair pulled into a practical bun, and clothes that spoke of long hours of work. Aunt Margaret, without a doubt. The girls instinctively drew closer to one another, protective. "I'm sorry, Aunt Margaret." Faith said quickly. We just wanted to visit Daddy one more time. Margaret checked them over anxiously. You can't leave school like that. What if something happened? What if you got lost? Then her eyes found me. Wariness flickered there. Who are you? I stood, wiping my tears. I'm Marlene Patterson, Michael's mother. The color drained from her face. She looked from me to the girls, calculating what I knew. Come on, girls, she said sharply, reaching for Faith's hand. We need to get you back to school. Wait, I said, stepping forward, heart pounding. Please, I just found out about them. I need to understand. No, Margaret said firmly, pulling the girls closer. Stay with me until the end, and share in the comments where you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Margaret's warning. I'm sorry for your loss, Mrs. Patterson. Truly. Michael was a good man, she said, her voice tight with resolve. But these children have been through enough. I'm their grandmother, I replied, finding strength I didn't know I had. Surely I have a right. You have no rights here. Margaret cut in, sharp and protective. Michael made his choices for good reasons. Don't make this harder than it already is. With that, she turned and hurried the girls toward a faded blue sedan. Faith glanced back, her face a mix of confusion and sorrow. Will we see you again? She called. Before I could answer, they were gone, leaving me alone beside my son's grave. Questions swirling like the cold evening air. A restless night. That night I sat in my kitchen, tea untouched, replaying every word. Michael had 3 daughters, 10-year-old triplets, living with a woman named Aunt Margaret, who seemed desperate to keep me away. And Michael had told them I was still grieving my late husband, that he was protecting me from some deeper sadness. But what could be sad about grandchildren? What secret had my son carried for a decade? Faith's words echoed. Sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices to protect the people they love. Protect me from what? One thing was certain. I couldn't pretend I hadn't seen them. They were my granddaughters, my only family left. Searching for clues. For 3 days I drove aimlessly, scanning neighborhoods for that old blue sedan. The city felt impossibly large, but sitting still wasn't an option. By Saturday, I tried a different path. Michael's apartment building. Maybe someone there knew more. The manager, Mr. Torres, greeted me kindly. Mrs. Patterson, how are you holding up? I'm managing, I said, though it wasn't true. Mr. Torres, did Michael ever have visitors? Children? He hesitated, and then lowered his voice. There were 3 little girls. Always polite, always quiet. They came with an older woman, maybe in her 50s. They visited every couple of weeks. Sweet kids. Never any trouble. My heart pounded. That had to be Margaret and the girls. She looked tired, he added, like she carried a heavy load. I thanked him, feeling as though I'd found another piece of a puzzle I still couldn't see clearly. Back to the cemetery. That afternoon I made a decision that wasn't entirely rational. I returned to the cemetery and waited. If the girls had skipped school before, maybe they'd visit again. I parked beneath the trees where I could see Michael's grave without being obvious. It felt strange, like I was trespassing, but these were my granddaughters. I needed to know them. 2 hours passed before a familiar blue sedan eased through the gates. My heart leapt. Margaret stepped out first, followed by the 3 girls. This time they wore simple weekend clothes, jeans and cozy sweaters, neat but modest. I approached slowly. Margaret noticed me immediately, her face tightening. Mrs. Patterson, she said, moving protectively in front of the girls. What are you doing here? The same thing you are, I answered gently. Visiting my son. Faith, hope, and joy peeked around Margaret, eyes wide and curious. In that moment, the family resemblance was unmistakable. They have Michael's eyes, I thought, my heart twisting. Stay with me until the end, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story reaches. Meeting at the diner, Joy held up a small bouquet of wildflowers. We brought Daddy new flowers, she said softly. They're beautiful, I replied, meaning it. He would love them. Margaret stood tense, ready to leave. But there was something in her expression. Exhaustion, maybe even quiet surrender. Margaret, I said carefully, could we talk for just a few minutes? There's nothing to talk about, she answered, but her voice lacked conviction. Please, I just want to understand. These are Michael's daughters, my granddaughters. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to know them. The girls listened intently. Faith stepped forward. Aunt Margaret, she said gently. Maybe we should talk to her. Daddy always said she was nice. Margaret's eyes softened. After a long pause, she exhaled. Not here. There's a diner on Maple Street, O'Malley's. 10 minutes. But this doesn't mean anything has changed. I'll answer a few questions, nothing more, revealing the past. 20 minutes later, we sat in a worn vinyl booth. Faith, Hope, and Joy shared a plate of fries and chocolate milkshakes, while Margaret stirred her coffee in silence. How long have you been caring for them? I asked quietly. Since their mother passed. Almost 4 years, Margaret said. I blinked. They were only 6? She nodded. Sarah was my sister. She had health problems. Michael helped as much as he could, but when she died, there was no one else. I glanced at the girls giggling softly over a private joke, happy but careful, as though they'd learned not to draw too much attention. What kind of health problems? I asked. Margaret's expression tightened. Some things are private. I understand, I said gently. But if there are health issues I should know about. You're not their grandmother, she interrupted sharply. Not legally. Michael never married Sarah. Yes, he loved those girls more than anything, but you have no legal claim. The words stung, but I saw the fear beneath her firmness. She was protecting them. I'm not trying to take them from you, I said softly. I can see you love them. But I'm 71. Michael was my only child. These girls are the only family I have left. Something shifted in her eyes. Recognition, maybe compassion. A difficult truth. Finally, Margaret spoke, voice barely above a whisper. Sarah had a rare genetic condition. It weakens the muscles over time. It's hereditary. My stomach dropped. I looked at the 3 girls, suddenly noticing subtle differences. The careful way Hope sat, the slight slump of Joy's shoulders. Do the girls have it too? Tears filled Margaret's eyes. 2 of them, Hope and Joy. Faith seems clear, but we won't know for sure until she's older. The air seemed to leave the room. How serious is it? I whispered. It can be managed with therapy, medication, and constant monitoring, Margaret said. But it's expensive. Michael helped cover the costs, but now, her voice trailed off. I studied Hope and Joy again, seeing the effort it took for Joy to sit upright. Is that why Michael kept them secret? Because of their condition? Margaret nodded slowly. He said you'd already faced so much loss. He didn't want to add more worry. He thought it would be too hard for you. A flash of anger surged. Did my son truly think I couldn't love children who needed extra care? But looking at Margaret's tired face, at the quiet strength of those girls, I began to understand. Michael hadn't been protecting me from sadness. He'd been protecting all of us from heartbreak. The next step. What kind of care did they need? I asked, my voice steady now. Margaret met my eyes. Specialized therapy, regular medical visits, medications to slow the progression. It's a lot, emotionally and financially. I reached across the table, my hand trembling but determined. Then let me help. Whatever it takes. They're my granddaughters. I'm here for them. The moment Faith said, "Hi, Grandma Marlene," my heart nearly stopped. Stay with me until the end and comment the city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story travels. The offer of help. Margaret looked surprised when I asked about the girls' care. Physical therapy twice a week, she said quietly. Regular checkups, medication to slow the progression. It's not just the money, though that's a lot. It's the coordination, making sure they stay active without pushing too hard. I work nights cleaning offices so I can take them to appointments during the day. It's hard. They're good girls. They never complain, but I worry constantly. I watched Faith carefully cut Joy's food into smaller pieces. Hope passed her a napkin without a word. These children had learned to care for each other in ways that broke my heart. Margaret, I said gently, what if you didn't have to do this alone? Suspicion flickered in her eyes. What do you mean? I mean someone to help with medical costs, with driving to appointments, someone who loves them. A grandmother who wants to be part of their lives. She hesitated. The girls were pretending not to listen, but their eyes betrayed them. Faith slid out of the booth and stood beside me. Are you really our grandmom? She asked softly. Yes, sweetheart, I am. And you want to know us, even though Hope and Joy are sick? The blunt honesty of her question took my breath. especially because they need extra care, I said, touching her small hand. That's what family does. We take care of each other. Faith studied my face, then nodded. I think Daddy would like that. Across the table, Margaret exhaled a shaky breath. Tears shimmered in her eyes. This is all happening very fast, she said. It doesn't have to, I assured her. We can take it step by step, but please don't shut me out. These girls are all the family I have left. Margaret turned her coffee cup in slow circles, then looked up. They'll need to get to know you first. And you need to understand what this means. This isn't about spoiling grandchildren. It's about medical appointments, insurance battles, and watching children you love face a lifelong condition. I understand, I said, though I knew it would be harder than I could imagine. If you change your mind, you can't disappear, she warned. They've lost enough. I won't walk away, I said firmly. These are my granddaughters. Nothing about their health changes that. Margaret studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, we can try, but on my terms. Their needs come first. Always. Always, I promised. A new beginning. For the first time since Michael's death, a small spark of hope stirred in my chest. I had granddaughters. 3 brave, beautiful girls who needed love and stability. Maybe they needed me as much as I needed them. We set our first visit for the following Saturday. Margaret insisted it be at their house, on their ground. I understood completely. The first visit, I drove through a quiet neighborhood until I found a small, well-kept bungalow with a garden bright with spring flowers. My stomach fluttered as Margaret opened the door before I could even knock. She looked as nervous as I felt, but stepped aside. Girls, she called, Mrs. Patterson is here. The house was modest but spotless. Every detail cared for. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. School backpacks lined up neatly by the door. It felt warm and loved. Faith appeared first, as I suspected she would, followed by Hope and Joy, who lingered shyly behind her. Hello, I said, suddenly unsure of the right words for this moment. Faith smiled. Hi, Grandma Marlene. The title made my heart skip. We had agreed on it during a phone call earlier in the week, but hearing it aloud felt like the beginning of something new, a fragile but undeniable bond tying us together. The afternoon sunlight spilled across the living room as Joy stepped forward, a plate balanced carefully in her small hands. Stay with me until the end, and share in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story travels. Cookies and crayon memories. We made cookies, Joy announced proudly. Chocolate chip. Aunt Margaret helped. They're beautiful, I said, taking one. Slightly lopsided, packed with too many chocolate chips, and absolutely perfect. Margaret gestured toward the living room. The girls want to show you something. Please sit. I settled on the couch with Faith on one side and Hope on the other, while Joy curled into the armchair. Margaret remained standing, protective but watchful. We made you a book, Hope said, handing me a construction paper album tied with yarn. It's about our family. On the first page, a tall, smiling stick figure was labeled Daddy. Next came 3 little girls holding hands, their names printed neatly above each one. This is us when we were 7, Faith explained. That's when Daddy taught us to ride bikes. Page after page unfolded their lives in crayon. Birthday cakes, park picnics, bedtime stories. Their mother, Sarah, appeared in early drawings and then quietly disappeared. Aunt Margaret showed up often, arms outstretched in welcome. And Michael, my son, was everywhere. Reading, cooking, laughing. Daddy said you live far away, Joy said as I admired a picture of a birthday party. But that someday, we might meet you. I didn't live far, I said softly. I just didn't know about you. I wish I had. I would have loved to be part of all these moments. Hope leaned against me, smaller than her sisters and already tiring. Even seated, she rested as though simply staying upright took effort. Honest questions. Are you really rich? Faith asked suddenly, with the frankness only a child can manage. Faith, Margaret started, but I raised a hand. It's all right. Yes, I suppose I am. Your grandfather and I worked hard and saved carefully. Daddy said rich people sometimes don't like poor people, Joy added matter-of-factly. But he said you weren't like that. Your daddy was right, I said, touched and a little saddened that Michael had felt the need to say it. Having money doesn't make someone better or worse. It just means you have a chance to help others. Like how you three take care of each other. Faith nodded seriously. That makes sense. Stories of their father. For the next hour, we flipped through photo albums Margaret brought out. Michael teaching them to garden, helping with homework, laughing with unguarded joy. I realized how happy he'd been in those moments, a light in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. He said he loved us as much as all the stars, Joy whispered, and that even when we couldn't see him, he was always thinking about us. Tears threatened, but I blinked them back. This visit was about them, not my sorrow. As the afternoon passed, the girls' differences became clear. Hope and Joy tired quickly. Joy's hands trembled slightly as she colored. Yet Faith moved with quiet purpose, helping her sisters without fuss, placing a pillow behind Hope, steadying Joy's crayon. By 4 o'clock, Joy's energy faded completely. She climbed into my lap as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Someone's getting sleepy, Margaret said gently. I'm not tired. Joy mumbled, her eyes half closed. It's all right to rest, sweetheart, I said, smoothing her fine, soft hair, the same texture Michael had as a child. A father's legacy. Will you tell us a story? Hope asked, snuggling closer. Kind of story, I asked. Tell us about when Daddy was little, Faith said. So I did. I told them about Michael collecting bugs in jars, about the time he tried to bathe our cat and ended up soaked, about the evenings he stood on a chair beside me learning to cook. I told them how he decided to become a doctor after our neighbor suffered a heart attack. Daddy said he wanted to help people feel better, Hope murmured, eyes drifting shut. He did help people, I said softly. He was a wonderful doctor and a wonderful father. By the time I finished, Joy was asleep in my arms, her sisters leaning drowsily against me. In that quiet living room, surrounded by crayons, cookies, and the gentle breathing of 3 brave girls, I felt something I hadn't known since Michael's death, the steady, unmistakable warmth of family. When Faith slipped a small piece of paper into my hand, I knew my life had changed forever. Stay with me until the end, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from so I can see how far this story reaches. A quiet moment upstairs. Can I carry her? I asked as Margaret gently suggested putting Joy down for a nap. After a brief hesitation, she nodded. Joy felt feather light in my arms. She stirred, but didn't wake as I followed Margaret down a short hallway to a cozy bedroom with 2 sets of bunk beds. Drawings and crafts lined the walls, bright splashes of color in a room clearly loved and well lived in. I laid Joy on a lower bunk, and Margaret tucked a soft blue blanket around her. She naps most afternoons, Margaret whispered. The condition makes her tire easily. Messages from Michael. Back in the living room, Faith and Hope were flipping through more photo albums. Can we show her the videos? Faith asked. Videos? I echoed. Margaret hesitated, then retrieved a tablet. She tapped a file, and suddenly Michael's face filled the screen. My breath caught. Hi, my beautiful girls, his recorded voice began, warm and playful. For 10 minutes, he spun a fairy tale about 3 princess sisters who had to work together to save their kingdom, using silly voices that made Faith and Hope giggle, even though they'd clearly watched it many times. When the story ended, Michael's expression softened. Remember, he said, looking straight into the camera, you 3 are the most important things in my world. I love you more than all the stars in the sky. Be good for Aunt Margaret. Take care of each other and know that Daddy is always thinking of you. The video ended. Silence filled the room. I wiped away tears I didn't bother to hide. He made lots of videos, Hope said quietly. For when we missed him, Faith added, leaning against my shoulder. Yes, I managed, voice thick. He was a wonderful father. A difficult offer. Margaret sat across from us, her guarded expression softening. This is hard for me, she admitted. I've been their whole world for 4 years. The idea of sharing them, it scares me. I'm not here to take them away, I said gently. I can see how much you love them. But wouldn't it be easier if you had help? She hesitated. Their next round of medical appointments is coming up. Hope needs to see the neurologist. Joy's physical therapy evaluation is due. The insurance company is fighting coverage again. What if I handled that? I offered. What if we got them the best care without worrying about cost? I can't let you just pay for everything, Margaret said. It's not about money, I replied. It's about family. Faith had been listening closely. "Aunt Margaret," she said softly, "maybe it would be good to have help. You've been really tired lately." Hope nodded. "We don't want you to be sad and tired all the time. Maybe Grandma Marlene could help." Their words hung in the air, wise beyond their years. Margaret looked at them, then at me, fear and relief mixing in her eyes. "What if we start small?" I suggested. "Let me help with the next appointment." Just to see how it goes. After a long pause, Margaret nodded. "Okay, we can try. But we do this my way, at my pace, and the girls' needs come first. Always, I promised." The family taking shape. As I prepared to leave, Joy awoke and insisted on walking me to the door. All three girls wrapped their arms around me in a warm group hug. Faith slipped a folded piece of paper into my hand. "It's my phone number," she whispered, "in case you want to call us." I looked at the carefully written digits in a child's neat handwriting and felt my heart swell. "I would love to call you," I whispered back. Driving home, I thought about everything I'd learned. 3 remarkable children facing challenges together with courage and love. A devoted aunt caring more than her share, and my son, who had quietly shaped this little family even from a distance. What surprised me most was how natural it all felt. No awkwardness, no forced politeness. Just family, finally finding its way together. The doctor's words hung in the air like a storm about to break. "Stay with me until the end, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from so I can see how far the story reaches." A call that changed everything. That evening, I dialed the number Faith had slipped into my hand. Margaret answered, then quickly passed the phone to the girls. "Grandma Marlene!" Joy's voice burst through the speaker, bright with excitement. "Did you get it home okay?" "I did, sweetheart." "Thank you for a wonderful afternoon. Will you come see us again?" Hope asked. "As often as you'll have me," I promised, and I meant it. Whatever lay ahead, medical appointments, insurance battles, sleepless nights, I was committed. These girls were my family now, and family stands together. An unexpected diagnosis. 3 weeks later, I joined them for what I thought was a routine checkup. Dr. Chen greeted us in a small exam room, her expression serious. "The genetic test confirmed what we suspected," she began. "Hope and Joy do carry the markers for the muscle condition. But there's more. The progression looks more aggressive than we first believed. Without intervention, both girls may face significant mobility issues within a few years." The only sound was the soft scratch of crayons as Hope and Joy colored, unaware that their futures were being rewritten. My breath caught. "What kind of intervention?" I asked. "There's an experimental treatment program at Johns Hopkins," Dr. Chen explained. "It's showing promising results for this exact genetic variant, but it requires several months, possibly longer, on site." "Months?" Margaret whispered. I don't have the resources for that. The program covers most medical costs," the doctor said gently. "But living expenses and lost income are real concerns." I looked at the girls, still coloring, while Faith, ever watchful, had stopped drawing and was listening intently. "Hard truths. What happens if they don't get the treatment?" I asked, afraid of the answer. "The condition will keep progressing. They'll likely need wheelchairs within 5 years, maybe sooner. Their life expectancy would be significantly shortened." Margaret made a small, broken sound. I reached across and held her trembling hand. "And with the treatment?" I pressed. "Early results are encouraging," Dr. Chen said. "Some children have slowed or even halted the progression. It isn't a cure, but it can give them decades of mobility and independence." Faith finally spoke. Her serious brown eyes locked on the doctor. "Are you talking about Hope and Joy?" "Yes, sweetheart," Dr. Chen said gently. "It's a special program that might help them stay strong for longer." Faith's voice was quiet but steady. "Would they have to go away?" "For a while, yes," the doctor replied, "but not alone. They need someone with them." Faith glanced at Margaret, her young face far too mature. "Aunt Margaret can't leave work that long. And we can't afford it. I heard you on the phone with the insurance company." Hope looked up, suddenly aware. "Are Joy and I going to get sicker?" The room went still. Margaret searched for words. Tears welled in Faith's eyes. A promise made. I finally spoke, my voice stronger than I felt. "Not if I have anything to say about it." Everyone turned toward me. Margaret shook her head slightly, a silent warning not to promise what I couldn't deliver. "Mrs. Patterson," Dr. Chen said carefully, "this is a major commitment." 6 to 8 months away, sometimes more. It's not only about finances. I understand, I said, meeting Margaret's eyes. But these are my granddaughters. And I will do whatever it takes. When Margaret finally told me the last secret Michael carried, it felt like the air left the room. Stay with me until the end, and share in the comments where you're watching from, so I know how far this story travels. Deciding together, if there's a treatment that could help them, I said, then we're going to do it. Marlene! Margaret's voice was low. You don't understand what you're promising. Months away from home, constant appointments, 2 children who will need round-the-clock care. Then come with us, I replied. All of us. We'll rent a place near the hospital. I'll hire home care nurses, tutors, whatever they need. You can't do that, she whispered. You're not letting me do anything, I said firmly. I'm choosing to. These girls are family. Hope slid off her chair and wrapped an arm around Margaret. Aunt Margaret, is this because of the money again? It's not just money, sweetheart. It's about what's best for you and Joy. What's best is being together, Faith said, joining her sister. Joy followed, small and serious. Maybe Grandma Marlene is right. Maybe we all help each other. I watched, my heart aching and full at the same time. These children had learned to comfort their caregiver when they should only be worrying about school and playground games. Dr. Chen cleared her throat gently. The next enrollment period is in 8 weeks. Applications are due within 2 p.m. I turned to Margaret. What do you need to make this decision? She looked from the girls to me, eyes shining. I need to know you understand what you're committing to. This isn't only about paying for treatment. It means months, maybe years of watching 2 children you love struggle through procedures and setbacks, and still keeping their spirits high. And Faith will need support too, so she never feels overlooked. I knelt so I was level with the 3 girls. Faith, Hope, Joy. If we do this, there will be hard days. Days when Hope and Joy feel tired or scared. Days when all of us do. But we'll face it together. As a family. Will we all stay together? Faith asked. Every single day, I promise. Even when it's hard, Hope whispered. Especially when it's hard, I said. Joy stepped forward and hugged me tight. I don't want to get sicker, she murmured. You're not going to, I told her, holding her close. We're going to fight this with everything we have. The hidden past. That evening, after the girls were asleep, Margaret and I sat in her quiet kitchen, untouched cups of tea cooling between us. There's something you should know, she began softly, about why Michael kept them secret. I waited. Sarah didn't just pass from the genetic condition, Margaret said, voice trembling. She took her own life. She was terrified of what the girls might face, of watching their symptoms appear. One night, she couldn't bear it anymore. The word struck like a physical blow. What? The girls don't know? They believe she died from complications, which is partly true. Michael was devastated. He blamed himself for not seeing how deep her despair had become. Understanding washed over me. That's why he never told me. He thought I couldn't handle it. Margaret nodded. He said you'd already lost your husband. He wanted to spare you more pain. I closed my eyes, picturing my son carrying this secret alone, working extra shifts, paying medical bills, hiding a second family, because he thought it would protect me. He was wrong, I whispered. Not about Sarah's pain, that was real and terrible, but about me. I would have helped. I would have been there. Maybe, Margaret said gently. But you can't blame him for trying. Love sometimes means making impossible choices. A promise for the future. I sat in that small kitchen, thinking of Michael's secret video messages, of his careful plans to shield everyone he loved. Margaret, I said at last, I want this treatment program. Not because of guilt, but because these girls deserve every chance we can give them. She held my gaze for a long time. Finally, she nodded, eyes bright with tears. And in that quiet moment, I felt the weight of both our promises, to honor Michael's memory, to protect 3 remarkable children, and to face whatever came next, together. The moment I decided to fight for my granddaughters, my life changed forever. Stay with me until the end, and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Choosing the hard road. It's going to change your life completely, Margaret warned softly. You'll go from a quiet, comfortable widow to a full-time caregiver for 3 children, 2 with serious medical needs. My life changed the moment I saw them at Michael's grave, I said. Everything since then has just been figuring out how to make it work. For the first time since we left the doctor's office, Margaret smiled. Okay, she whispered. Let's do it. Let's give those girls the best shot we can. As I drove home that night, I replayed Joy's small voice. I don't want to get sicker, and my own promise back to her. Whatever it took, however long it took, I would keep that promise. It's what Michael would have wanted. It's what these brave little girls deserved. And it's what family does. We show up for each other when the stakes are highest. The next morning, I called Dr. Chen's office to submit the application for the treatment program. Then I phoned my financial advisor to shift my priorities completely. For the first time since Michael's death, I felt a purpose stronger than anything else. 18 months later, a year and a half later, I stood in the kitchen of our Baltimore house, sunlight pouring across the hardwood floors. Faith helped Joy with her physical therapy stretches while Hope practiced piano in the living room. Laughter and music filled spaces that had once been silent, and I realized I couldn't even remember what loneliness used to feel like. The treatment program had been exactly as Dr. Chen warned: intense, exhausting, sometimes heartbreaking. There were days when Hope and Joy were too sick from medications to do anything but sleep. Days when Faith felt left out. Days when Margaret and I were so tired we could barely speak. But there were other days. Days when Hope's muscle strength improved. When Joy walked farther than she had the week before. When the girls' giggles drowned out every worry. "Grandma Marlene," Joy called from her mat. "When Faith and Hope turn 11 next month, can we have the party here?" "Of course, sweetheart," I said, still amazed at how natural the word grandma felt. "A pizza party," Faith added quickly, "with extra cheese and those little sausages," Hope corrected from the piano. "They're called pepperoni," she teased, and everyone laughed. Over these months, I learned their rhythms. Faith the organizer, Hope the dreamer, Joy the gentle peacemaker who held them all together. Margaret came in from work, her hospital ID badge swinging as she set down her bag. The patient advocacy job Dr. Chen helped her find gave her both income and purpose beyond caregiving. "How did therapy go today?" she asked, accepting the coffee I handed her. "Joy walked 3 more steps than yesterday," Faith reported proudly. "And Hope played that tough song all the way through," Margaret added. Progress had been slow but steady. Hope's condition had stabilized so completely that her muscle strength was now better than when we started. Joy's improvement was more gradual, but she was defying every prediction the doctors had made. More important than the test results, both girls had discovered that their condition did not define them. Hope was becoming an accomplished pianist. Joy had found a gift for storytelling and was already talking about writing books, helping others. "Speaking of the party," Margaret said as she joined us at the table, "Dr. Chen called today. She wants to include the girls in a case study." "What does that mean?" Faith asked, instantly attentive. "It means Hope and Joy's progress has been so good that other doctors want to learn from it," I explained. "It could help other children with the same condition. Would we have to do anything different?" Hope asked, pausing at the piano. "Just a few extra tests and interviews," Margaret assured her. "Nothing painful or scary. They just want to document how well you're doing." The 3 sisters exchanged their familiar silent glance. "If it helps other kids, we should do it," Joy said finally. "Definitely," Hope agreed. "Right, Faith?" Faith nodded with quiet certainty. "We know how scary it was when we first found out about the treatment." "Families should stay together," Joy said, and in that moment, I knew exactly what choice we were about to make. Stay with me until the end, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story travels. Evening reflections. That night, after the girls had gone to bed, Margaret and I sat on the front porch of our Baltimore home. Our quiet ritual. The neighborhood was calm, kids playing kickball in the fading light. "I got a call from the real estate agent today," Margaret said softly, "about the house back home. We'd been renting out her old place, but the lease was ending. It was time to decide, return or stay." "What are you thinking?" I asked. She looked toward the street where laughter drifted through the warm air. "The girls are settled here. They have friends. Hope's piano teacher says she's talented enough for the conservatory program. Joy is thriving in that creative writing class she loves. And Faith? I asked. Faith keeps asking if we're staying because she wants to try out for the school debate team next year. Margaret smiled faintly. She's got Michael's argumentative streak. Over the months, I'd seen more and more of my son in each of them. Faith with his determination, hope with his quiet intensity, joy with his endless optimism. What about you? I asked gently. What do you want? Margaret looked surprised. What I want? She was silent for a long time before whispering. I want the girls to be happy and healthy. I want them to have every opportunity they deserve. That's what you want for them, I said softly. What do you want for yourself? Her eyes filled. I want to stop being afraid. For 4 years, I've gone to bed terrified that I'm not doing enough, that I'm failing them. For the first time since Sarah died, I feel like maybe I'm not carrying this alone. You're not, I said, taking her hand. You haven't been for months. I know, she admitted. And that scares me too. What if something happens to you? What if you decide this is too much? The girls have already lost too many people. Margaret, I said firmly, I'm not going anywhere. These children are my family now. You're my family. Whatever happens, we face it together. She squeezed my hand. So, we're staying in Baltimore? If that's what's best for the girls, I said, then yes. A morning decision. The next morning, we gathered around the breakfast table. Pancakes, orange juice, and 3 10-year-olds ready to help make a life-changing choice. We can stay here in Baltimore permanently, I explained, or move back to Aunt Margaret's house and visit for checkups. What do you think? Faith tilted her head. What do you want to do, Grandma Marlene? I want whatever makes you happiest and healthiest, I said honestly. But you had a whole life before us, Hope pointed out. Don't you miss your old house and your friends? The question caught me off guard. Did I? I thought of the big empty house, the quiet days filled with nothing but investments and charity lunches. You know what I miss, I said finally. I miss your daddy. I miss knowing I had family, but I don't miss being alone. Joy, who'd been quiet, studied me with Michael's same thoughtful eyes. Before you found us, were you lonely? Her directness stole my breath. Yes, sweetheart. I was very lonely. I looked around the table at these 3 extraordinary children who had filled my life with purpose. Now I wake up excited to see what you'll do next. Now I have piano recitals, therapy sessions, and homework to help with. Now I have people who need me, and people I need, so none of us are lonely anymore. Faith nodded, satisfied. Exactly. Then we should definitely stay together, Joy said firmly. All of us? Hope asked, turning to Margaret. All of us pot. Margaret confirmed, smiling. If Grandma Marlene is sure she wants 3 noisy girls permanently taking over her life. I looked at each of them, my heart full. I've never been more sure of anything. 3 little girls once whispered, "Bye, Daddy," at a graveside, and that moment turned all of our lives into something none of us could have imagined. Stay with me until the very end, and let me know in the comments what you would do if you were in my place. A new home, a new life. I can't think of anything I'd want more, I told Margaret, and I meant it. That afternoon, while the girls were scattered at their activities, Hope at piano, Joy at her writing class, Faith at soccer, Margaret and I visited a real estate office. If we're staying for good, we'll need more space, she said, pointing to a listing for a 5-bedroom colonial just a few blocks away. The photos showed a big backyard for the girls, a kitchen perfect for family cooking, and best of all, it was within walking distance of the hospital where Hope and Joy would continue their follow-up care. It's perfect, I said. It's expensive, Margaret cautioned. It's family, I answered. 6 months later, I stood in that very kitchen, now truly ours. The walls were covered in the girls' artwork and photos of our Baltimore adventures. Hope's piano occupied a sunny corner where she practiced with the quiet intensity that once defined Michael's study habits. Joy's stories filled a bulletin board, each more imaginative than the last. Faith's debate trophies gleamed on the mantel beside pictures of all of us together. Margaret had turned one office into her own study space, taking night classes to become a certified patient advocate. I transformed the music room into a cozy library where we read together every evening. My favorite piece of decor was a small frame photo on my nightstand. Michael reading to 3 giggling little girls, joy shining across his face. Margaret had found it among Sarah's belongings and given it to me for Christmas. I finally understood why my son had kept them hidden. He hadn't been trying to hurt me. He'd been trying to protect us all from pain he thought we couldn't bear. He'd been wrong about what I could handle, but absolutely right about how much there was to love. Everyday happiness. That evening, our dinner table buzzed with laughter as we debated whether pineapple belongs on pizza. Faith and I were firmly against it. Hope and Joy were adamant fans. Margaret claimed neutrality, but always ordered Hawaiian. I felt something I hadn't known since Gerald died. Complete contentment. These three girls had given me far more than the title of grandma. They gave me purpose, daily laughter, and the kind of loving chaos I never realized I was missing. Hope and Joy's medical journey taught me that love isn't just about easy moments. It's about showing up for the hard ones. Faith's fierce protectiveness revealed what real strength looks like. Margaret became the daughter I never had, proving that family can be chosen as well as inherited. Grandma Marlene, Joy said, catching me smiling. You're smiling funny, she teased. What kind of funny, I asked. Happy funny, Hope said. Like when we brought you breakfast in bed on your birthday. I was just thinking about how much I love our family, I told them. Even when we're loud and arguing about pizza, Faith asked with a grin. Especially then, I laughed. Gratitude. As we cleared the dishes, I thought about Michael and wished he could see us now. His daughters thriving, their futures bright, surrounded by people who love them unconditionally. I had arrived in their lives as a lonely widow. They transformed me into a grandmother with purpose and a future worth looking forward to. 3 little girls had once whispered, "Bye, Daddy." Somehow, that farewell became a brand new hello for all of us, a life fuller and more joyful than anything I'd planned. Now I'm curious about you, the ones listening to our story. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever faced a moment that completely changed your idea of family? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. And before you go, check out the 2 stories on screen now. They're channel favorites, and I promise they'll surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until the end.